Chapter 13. I knew exactly where I was going. Boxes of journals we'd doodled and written all over had engraved the route me and Maddie would have taken and deeply embedded it into my mind. I could almost see the map expanding out in front of me over the dashboard and night-darkened windshield. The "You Are Here" flag pin following along over top of my barely moving blimp of a vehicle, surrounded by roads and changing scenery that I couldn't quite see, as all played a part in slowly ebbing away at the distance standing between me and my destination. The Emerald City, the seat of everything: fashion, art circles, world-renowned theaters, publishing houses of all kinds. The history we'd found while digging through its historical bones had made Maddie and me feel like we were looking at a social map of our own little town, only on a bigger scale. The politics, the silent, often mostly socially polite feuds, the below-the-bar, mostly secret alliances that really everybody knew about. And then the explosive public blowouts, when one side or the other finally had enough of pretending and just didn't care anymore who saw how they reacted when an interaction had finally gotten under their skin, and they showed their weakness. Like me, punching Megan in the face, or dumping all the sweaty football equipment into her dance bag back in high school. She'd never found out about that one either. I liked it better that way. It was like the best little reminder from the universe not to make so many enemies that you couldn't quite pick which one might have been the most likely culprit. The longer the list of potential enemies, the less likely they are to get caught, creating the backdrop for the perfect crime. I tapped my hands over the steering wheel. 20 hours left. That's not so bad. I smiled out at the river running along the edge of the road. It was one I knew well. I could picture it in summertime, in full blossom. We'd spent so many hours lounging around its banks, talking about everything. It made me a little sad that I was catching it at the first signs of winter breaking. Maddie and I had gotten good at picking the meat and potatoes from the endless social buffets of information we'd poured over during certain collection phases of our lives, and comparing notes over our little microcosm and how similar it seemed to the macrocosm at large, the public eye that everybody seemed to be ever more pointing toward. I shook my head. We could have literally taught the master class. I felt like I already knew the characters that I was potentially going to run into, if everything played to my plan, our plan. I could almost envision what the inside of our little matching studio apartments would look like. The daydream carried me along for another hour of drive time. As time passed, I took my eyes from the road for just a minute to glance at my phone screen propped up in my center console. 19 hours and 2 minutes to destination. Sweet. It felt like I was zipping down a dark portal, flying past scenery that was becoming ever more foreign to me, even though it was coming across in no more than vague shadows that I could imagine to be cornfields, grasslands, mountains, hills, valleys with rivers, much like the one I was leaving behind. It excited me to think that each mile I drove into the dark put another inch of a mysterious veil to stand between me and my start point. To cleanse the silence, I flipped on the AM radio, assuming NPR might be the only thing I'd find active at this time of night or in this desolate location. My chest warmed up as the iconic voice of a broadcaster I'd heard 1,000 times over my dad's old radio growing up reached out and pulled me in. Anytime I was back in his workshop while he set stones or cleaned and shined different pieces, this was the voice that had kept us company in our shared space. Again, my heart squeezed as I was drawn back to the thought of the shadow at the living room window. It suddenly felt more real than it had at first. I wiped away tears building in my eyes. I'm gonna miss you too, Dad,